Before the age of 30, I have generated millions in wealth. And today I want to dive into the best and the worst investments that I've made. Of course, you should know that the majority of my wealth has been made in the cryptocurrency. So what I want to do is compare my crypto investing to some of the other investments that I've made and ultimately decide, would have I been better off going all in on crypto? For each investment, I'll also rate it out of 10 and highlight the advantages and the disadvantages that these investments face. Welcome to Crypto Coach Will, where we bridge the gap for everyday investors wanting to build real wealth in crypto. I'm Will Wright, the founder of Mining Store and Imperial Wealth, two of Australia's leading companies in the crypto space. For over a decade, I've helped everyday investors safely and securely set up in the cryptocurrency market so they can build long-term sustainable wealth. In this podcast, we break down the complexities of the cryptocurrency market, everything from investing, trading, DeFi, and even Bitcoin mining. Let's get into it. I've tried it all over the past 10 years. Stocks, property, commodities, derivatives, my own business, and of course, cryptocurrency. And ultimately, what I have learned is different investments perform at various points in time. I think that's the problem that most investors don't understand or prepare for. Too many investors don't understand the timeframes, the risk profile, or the correct strategy to follow when it comes to investments they make. So when I share the investments that I've made in this episode, I'm going to attempt to highlight why some on paper might not look good, but why they still have a purpose in my long-term strategy. Now, I want you to stick around to the end of this episode because there is one investment in particular which is not what you think, and this investment has completely transformed my life. There is also another investment that I go over, which everyone has been spun under an illusion that it's the best investment. But I want to highlight some key considerations and tips before you may fall into the same trap that I did. Now, the first investment that I want to look at is starting my own business. By far, this has been the best investment for so many reasons. I might have made a higher return on investment by putting the money that I've put into my business into Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining, maybe altcoins, or putting it into decentralized finance. But running a business gives you so much more than just a return on investment. It gives you cash flow. Working a good job and getting paid can achieve this as well. But however, when I and other business owners that I am friends with compare to people that are working standard jobs for someone else or for a boss, the bigger man, there's a massive difference in both the wealth and the future projection of wealth that we obtain as business owners. And that's not to say that there is not a time and a place for someone out there to be working for someone else. You should do that. Of course, you should learn for as much as you possibly can from someone else who's done it before you start your business. But I do encourage you to at least start your own side business, as well as have a vision for something that you could build to be yours in the future. Another great aspect of running your own business is the more I put in, the more I get out. That's what working for someone else sometimes doesn't get you. How many people do you know, or perhaps you're in the position where you are not getting the reward for the extra work that you do for your company? So that's a major advantage of working for yourself. However, it does go both ways. If you don't put the effort in, you won't get the results. Probably one of the biggest advantages of running your own business is the lifestyle that you're able to achieve. It's incredibly rewarding. Probably not for the first 3 to 5 years of establishing your business, but once you have built your A-team, you've secured your spot in your market, you really are your own boss. If you want to travel around the world and work from amazing places, you absolutely can. If you're having a bad day or you've had a few too many drinks the night before, you can take it slow. The buck stops with you. There are so many more benefits of running your own business, including the network that it has grown for me and the fulfillment, personal satisfaction I have achieved. The skills and the mindset it has trained me has also been something that I will never underestimate. And of course, because of the success we have had, I've been able to set myself up and continue to reinvest in my own business and compound my wealth. And that final point is probably the most important. When you build your own business, you actually create an investment, which is probably the best investment for you to put more capital into. because you control it and you determine how well that investment does. Was it all sunshine and rainbows? Absolutely not. Believe it or not, I was actually an Uber driver for the first year of running my business. I used to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, drive until 10 a.m. and ensure I made just enough money to get by day. Then the rest of the day and night, I was grinding on my own business. But hands down, this has been the best investment I've ever made. I have rated this investment a solid 10 out of 10. The second investment I want to look at was my first property investment. I made this investment in around 2020. This investment was into a unit trust, so the total amount that we raised was $4.8 million. I personally put $134,000 into the fund. And what it was funding was a series of NDIS housing developments. Now, this investment ticked a lot of boxes for me. It went towards building homes for the people in the world that need it the most. So that element I honestly instantly liked. And from an investor's point of view, it ticked many boxes. The land that was being acquired was having a revenue generating business put on top of it. And that actually increased the value of the land itself. The rental yield from these NDIS developments is incredibly high, as these homes are fitted out to accommodate people with serious disability, and the cost of rent is quite high for that. The rent is supported by the NDIS, which is a government-backed program, and a large portion of the rental yield comes from the government, which gives us security. Overall, this investment, as you can see by the screenshot that is up here right now, and the financial statement that I recently received, has been incredibly impressive. Per year, the capital growth on my initial investment has gone up by 17%. The average in Australia is something around 6 to 8%. The rental yield on that investment is 6%, and that will grow to over 10% because we are still building some of the homes. We're only at about 5 of the 10 fully built, with 3 of the 5 looking to be finished in 2026. The average rental yield in Australia is about 3 to 5%. So when all of these developments are done, all complete should be getting us around 10% yield, which is substantially higher than most developments. Now, in terms of property, I'm incredibly happy with this investment. The capital growth and the rental yield has been substantially above average. The $134,000 I invested is now worth $240,000, and every year I'm receiving around $15,000 worth of rental yield. Now, the best thing is the surveying, the construction, the financial management, the tenant management, and everything else that goes with pulling this investment together has completely been ran by someone else. This has been a brilliant passive investment, and I rate this investment a solid 8 out of 10. Whilst we're on the topic of property, the other property investment I have made was my personal property, which I purchased in around 2023. The purchase price was $1.4 million and $10,000, and I made a 10% deposit, allowing me to loan $1.25 million. I paid stamp duty of $77,000. I paid legal fees and professional fees of over $10,000. Every month I pay around $4,500 to $5,500 of interest, depending on how much I have in my offset account. I've had the property for about 32 months now, which means I've paid, hold your breath, $145,000 to $165,000 of interest so far. On top of that, I have a major expense on the property. Many major expenses, in fact. I've had a pool filter for $3,000, an aircon system for $5,000, a new fence for $6,000. I've done landscaping, $3,000. The hours I've spent on maintaining the property would be on average 3 hours per week. I've got gum leaves on my property. So if you add that up over the time I've been in the property, that's around 672 hours of work, about 28 days of my life. I'll never get those back. So to purchase this property, it's cost me from the get-go around $90,000, the legal fees and the stamp duty. To maintain it, it's cost me probably $180,000. And that includes obviously the interest repayments that I've had to be putting towards it. And I've wasted 672 hours of my life. Now, I could pay someone else to do the maintenance, but I actually do enjoy it. It's free exercise, but let's put it on a gardener's rate of about $60 an hour. If you put that together, then that's another $40,000 of cost. So quick maths, putting all that together, that's about $300,000 to $310,000 of cost just to own this amazing investment, your personal property. Now, according to a quick online calculator, the value of my property has gone up about $210,000. It's not too bad. So I'm in the whole $100,000, which sucks. Now, of course, property is a 10-year investment, and we are only just 2 years into this investment. Also, the $5,500 that I'm paying in interest, let's face it, I would have to pay that towards renting a property if I didn't own the property that I live in. So far, I'm going to have to put this personal property investment at a low 5 out of 10. However, I do want to highlight some benefits, the biggest being leverage and cash flow. There are not many investments that young entrepreneurs like myself can access $1.2 million loans on. And once you secure that loan, you can add to your offset account, reduce the interest repayments that you're making, but then draw back against that offset account as new opportunities come up to invest in. Also, because the property value has gone up $200,000, I can actually draw down on equity should another investment opportunity pop up and I want to do that. And that's the main reason I set up my own personal property investment. Over 10 years, I am very confident that this property will put me well into the positive. And in between that time, it has set me up with the ability to leverage a $1.2 million loan, which I can pay off or draw down on, which is a very important part of my cash flow management. So really, I rank my personal property investment as a 7 out of 10. All right, so you all know that the majority of my wealth has been made through cryptocurrency. So let's go and compare my 2 property investments to investing into crypto. To keep things simple for the moment, let's do a simple comparison to what I could have made if I just put the money directly into Bitcoin instead of into those property investments. Just quickly, if you're ready to take your results to the next level, my team at Imperial Wealth Crypto can help. Inside our Crypto Academy, you'll get access to my personal portfolio, strategies, real-time market insights, and the exact plays my team and I use to stay ahead. With our team of analysts monitoring the markets 24/7, we've helped investors catch moves like a coin that's done a 5x in 4 days. If you're serious about accelerating your wealth, click the link below to book in a call with my team of experts and see how we can help. Now, back to the episode. So, property investment number 1 was $134,000 in 2020. Bitcoin's price on the 1st of January 2020 was about $10,000. Take me back there. I wish I could buy more. So I could have purchased 13 Bitcoin at today's rate of BTC AUD being $139,000. Therefore, if I had have invested in Bitcoin instead of investing into the property play, I would have made $1.8 million. Instead, I've made $300,000, which is not too bad at all, and a $15K dividend per year. So there it is for you. Now let's look at property investment 2. $1.4 million in 2023. The average price of Bitcoin was at about $43,000, meaning I could have purchased 32.6 Bitcoin. Today, that 32.6 Bitcoin would be worth, because Bitcoin's price is at around that 138,000, a casual $4.5 million. Instead, I'm currently $100,000 in the hole on the property that I purchased. Okay, so hindsight's a bitch. Luckily for me, I have been heavily mining and purchasing Bitcoin since 2015, and my crypto wealth well outperforms my wealth in property. I've made some investments into property because when I got into crypto, it was far from secure industry. We did not have ETFs. We did not have anything close to the amount of institutional investment in Bitcoin that we're seeing today. So it was diversification. And that's something that I have no regrets about. But there are some valuable insights I have learned from the comparisons, and I want you to be aware of them. Do not blindly invest into property. I must admit, when I first purchased my personal home, I didn't really stack up the numbers as much as I should have. I feel for people that fall for the common illusion that property is the best investment you'll ever do. Buy your home and don't do anything else. This is something I really want to bring to your attention as a lesson that I've learned the hard way, because I think way too many Australians are sold the dream of owning your personal property. They go all in on it. They max out the biggest loan that they can possibly get their hands on. They buy the best property they can possibly afford, and it's just not the best way of doing it. Something that I did differently, and I have shown you this in this episode, is I made sure that I had substantial investment in other areas before I bought my property. I did not want to be all in on property. I wanted to ensure that I still had higher risk, higher return investments, and that I could continue to have cash flow to invest in other opportunities that come up in the future. As you can see, there are substantial costs associated which they don't talk about. The stamp duty, the maintenance, the cost of legal fees, and the 672 hours of bloody maintaining your own property. In many cases, investments into stocks, or in my case, my investment into Bitcoin, Bitcoin mining, altcoins, and other things I've invested into have substantially outperformed my investment into property. And on top of that, my investment in Bitcoin, Bitcoin mining, and altcoins has been far more passive than my investment into particularly my personal property. So absolutely, there is a place for investing into personal property, but just consider the opportunity costs foregone and also the costs associated. All right, so let's go into some of the quick pros and cons of investing into property. The pro would be it is a longer standing asset. It is absolutely more proven than something like Bitcoin or new stocks or projects that are going to pop up. It is quite low risk, and hence why you can get a 1.2 million or more loan on it as a young investor. You can also achieve a dividend yield, and although you can do this in DeFi and other areas, property dividend is quite stable. It doesn't require too much management. Now, the cons of property. There are substantial costs associated, and you need to be aware of these before you commit to long-term investment. It is a long-term investment, and it's going to take you time to recoup those funds. The other thing about property, it's incredibly illiquid. And what I've seen way too many, both of my friends and just young investors doing, is maxing themselves out and then being stuck in property. Something else will come to their attention. It might be an AI investment. It might be a crypto project that I'm very bullish about and talking to them and they want to invest into, but they can't, because all their money is stuck into property. Not to mention they can't even go on holidays because they've leveraged themselves through the eyeballs on something they can't sell tomorrow. The final point that I want to make on property is it's a huge capital entry. You can't just add bits and pieces here and there. You know, so many people are saving money for 5 years, and whilst they're saving, what are they doing? They're leaving money in the bank, losing to inflation at the same time. So it's a nasty investment in that way too. The final point, the big con about property, is the lifestyle burden as well. And this is probably something in reflection as a business owner and someone that can move interstate and can travel around the world that has burdened me in particular. Probably the biggest con about property is the lifestyle burden. And as a business owner, this is something that has impacted me significantly. You can't just move overseas on the whim of a hat and decide I'm going to live overseas and live my life over there. You're paying a huge amount of interest and repayments on your personal property, and you can't rent something at the same time as well. Definitely most people can't. So that's probably the biggest downside. I think particularly for young people buying a house, there's no problem with renting something first, trying different areas, trying different states, and then having more capital to actually put into high risk investments before getting stuck on your personal property. Okay, so let's now look at a few other investments that I've made before I share the best one. Another great investment I made was back in 2021, about a year after I did the NDIS housing investment. Being a big believer in Bitcoin as a store of value asset, I wanted to also own some gold. So I bought a few ounces of gold, and although that gold has not nearly performed as well as Bitcoin, it has doubled in value since I bought it. Gold is something that has been around for 42,000 years and has always been seen as a strong store of value. And that was the reason that I bought into some gold. I wanted to ensure that I had some kind of exposure to an asset that if shit really hits the fan, and we're talking something like World War III, I have a store of value asset for a rainy day. And so I rate that investment into gold a solid 7 out of 10. If you have money that you're not really sure where to put it, or geopolitical circumstances look like World War III is coming on, then you can make an investment into gold. Now, another investment that I have tried is derivative trading. For me, I have definitely made good money, but it is an extremely steep learning curve, and it requires a lot of discipline and a lot of attention to detail, which can distract you from other opportunities and be a massive burden on your mental health. So derivative trading, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, unless you have the time, discipline, and desire to do it. Then it can be a 10 out of 10 investment. Just do not rush into it, particularly if you're new to investing. Another weird investment, and a lot of people do, is investing into other people's companies. And it can be good, but the problem with it is you have very limited control. And it can be very frustrating and, to be honest, a bit of a gamble if you're not involved with the process. I've done a bit of this with larger capital. However, I think if I had have put that capital into my own business, it would have been a much better way to allocate the money. All right, so there you have it. That's a summary of some of the investments that I've made over the past 10 years. I share these investments with you to show you that I've tried and tested many investments before, but upon my honest reflection, cryptocurrency has been by far the best. There is absolutely a point of time and place that other investments do well, and ultimately, I encourage everyone to have some sort of diversification in their portfolio. But the numbers have spoken for themselves. And until that slows down, crypto is always the front of my attention. But as promised, here is the best investment that I have ever made. The best investment that I have made is the investment into myself. Education, health, mental health, and personal development, and things like mentors and experiences. Now, of course, a lot of this has been funded by my financial investments, but a lot of the decisions you make and the resilience that you have is where your conviction comes from and everything else that you're doing. So the final point that I want to make is the absolute best investment that you can make is an investment into yourself, and also into others who are doing very well or you're seeing that are doing very well. Invest into them. Surround yourself with experts. That's really what Mining Store and Imperial Wealth is all about. We do all of the heavy lifting for you and for our clients. We do these things so you don't have to, because a lot of people just don't have the time to do it. We literally deliver our strategy, analysis, our mentorship and support to all of our clients on a silver platter. And all you have to do is trust the process and follow the guidance. And that's something that I've personally done so many times throughout my life Whether it be building my business or getting into amateur boxing, I always had mentors there who knew substantially more than I did, and I was humble to the advice they were giving me. Hopefully this episode has given you some insight into some of the good investments and the bad investments that I've made. And ultimately, as we did, compared it to cryptocurrency and how much cryptocurrency has outperformed over the years. If you got good value out of this episode, maybe send it to a friend or a family member. But of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up if you liked what you heard. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Crypto Coach Will. If you got value from today's episode, then make sure to subscribe so you never miss the latest tips to navigate the crypto market. If you're ready to take crypto investing to the next level, check out the links below where you can book in a call with my team of experts. We place strong emphasis on educating before investing in the market, so take advantage of the knowledge they have to share. Don't forget to follow us on socials @CryptoCoachWill, and I'll catch you in the next episode.